The Italian beef might just be the best dippable sandwich on earth. And I say that as a man who just made a pretty good French dip a couple weeks ago. The Italian beef is juicy, it's messy, it's savory. The bread is perfectly designed for it. Then you catch a glob of that spicy, crunchy giardiniera and realize that this is no sloppy steak. This thing has range. Now, being in Chicago, we already put in the reps, right? We've crawled all over the city searching for the best Italian beefs. We even smoked an Italian beef with a barbecue expert. And over the past few years, we've definitely made a handful of OG classic Italian beef sandwiches here on the channel. So this is not a rerun. This is Italian Beef 2.0. We're taking everything we've learned over the years to craft the tastiest version of Italian beef at home without disrespecting the tradition. This is the culmination. So without further ado, let's go way too deep on a sandwich that by design takes about 3 minutes to eat. The Italian beef sandwich starts after World War I with a street peddler named Anthony Ferrari. This dude was making food in his basement, loading it onto a truck, then driving it all over the city and basically slinging lunch to blue-collar workers. Almost kind of like a proto-food truck. Just like any new immigrant group to the United States, Italian Americans had a pretty tough time. They didn't have a lot of money, but they threw these things called peanut weddings. Generally in church basements, regular basements, foldable chairs, tables, cheap food. This could be for a wedding, for an anniversary, a birthday party, any celebration. And they were called peanut weddings because a lot of the times the only food on offer were peanuts. One faithful day, our boy Anthony Ferrari attended one of these peanut weddings. He noticed that there was a huge chunk of beef in a broth that was sliced thick and served to people. These people were on a budget, so the beef used was generally one of the least prized offers in the case, right? One of the largest, cheapest cuts, often tough, stringy, needs a lot of time to cook. You get it. Now, being a food guy, Anthony sees this beef and clocks it immediately. He thought to himself, what if he were to slice the beef razor thin, cook it in its own juices with spices, and suddenly feed twice as many people with a sandwich that's even better? So he took this idea up, started making his own sandwiches, loaded them onto his truck, and would sell them across Chicago. Fast forward to the 1930s, and Anthony has a son, Al. Now, Al grows up in the family business, but ends up going to jail and doing a little time. When he gets out of jail, he had a great idea. Let's open up a brick and mortar beef joint and use it as a bookie operation. Then in 1938, Al and his family make it legit, opening a small stand in Little Italy called Al's Barbecue. Beef simmering outside, sausage on the grill, only open at night because everybody still works day jobs. The Italian beef explodes. Bookies and gamblers follow suit, opening beef stands all over the city, which is why every beef joint still has somebody's first name on the sign. Take note of that next time you see one. Over time, the beef sandwich becomes the Italian beef sandwich. Most of these people opening up these shops were Italian, so over time, Italian beef just kind of like took hold. As for Al's Barbecue, they moved to their famous Little Italy location on Taylor Street back in the 1960s. Then in 1980s, when they won #1 Italian beef in the city from Chicago Magazine, ended up changing their name. They now go by Al's #1 Italian beef.
It's Eddie and Jobo at Al's Beef on Taylor Street.
How do you love your beef?
If you're from Chicago, you have definitely eaten at Al's, and if you've been here but not eaten at Al's, you've definitely seen the signs. And that's not folklore. This is a sandwich built from grit, necessity, hustle, a little organized chaos, and served wet. Italian beef, baby, we gotta talk beef. Now, traditionally, Italian beef is made with bottom round. It's historically inexpensive, it slices cleanly, and generally stays intact. However, today for our sandwich, I've chosen to use something a little different. Chuck roast. Not because it's fancy, but because it has high fat content, and remember, fat equals flavor. And as an added bonus, it still stays true to that history of Italian beef using off cuts that weren't too prized back in the day, right? Inexpensive. Save the prime rib for another day. Now, in order to make this chuck roast Italian beef worthy, we need to cook it low and slow, chill it hard, then slice it super, super thin like a classic Italian beef. I don't mean to throw shade, but the recipes that call for sort of like a shredded Italian beef, to me, that's more like a pot roast with Italian seasoning in it. And it's important that we get not only the flavor, but the texture and the look right as well. So all I did to this chuck roast was season it heavy with salt and pepper, then truss it up with some butcher's twine. It's really important that you do this with chuck roast because this tends to fall apart when it braises, so do not skip the tying part. You don't even have to get fancy with it. These are just little strings tied around like belts. I didn't weave these together, do any sort of fancy butcher's technique, no butcher's knots, easy. Let's sear some beef. All right, Dutch oven, high heat. We'll start things out with a little neutral Earl, just a splash. Then we will gently lay in our chuck. To do this right, things are going to get smoky, so pop on your hood vents if you have one. I don't. Open up a window if it's not snowing sideways outside. It is. And or close all the doors in your apartment and pray the alarms don't go off. These are the Italian spices, and they're gonna be listed in the recipe. The only real note to make this really nice is to toast the whole spices before you add them to the pot. Once we got some nice color on this chuck roast, we're gonna get that out of the pot and we're gonna toast off our halved garlic head in that rendered beef fat. This really only takes about 20 or maybe 30 seconds. If you burn the garlic, don't use it, start over, just be careful. Now we deglaze with the red wine. We're just gonna reduce that down till it's sec, meaning dry, basically a syrup. So kind of like this. Now we're gonna go in with our stock. This is chicken stock. If I had beef stock, I would use it. Now we're gonna go with all of our dried herbs and spices and seeds. The roasted whole head of garlic, skin and all, and our fresh herbs like the oregano, rosemary, and thyme. We're just gonna mix that all around here, get those spices worked in, get the herbs soaked. Looking and smelling good. So what we have here is real stock with lots of collagen and already added flavor, and then we're just kind of Italianizing it with some herbs, garlic, spices, the works. And that wine, of course, darkening it, making things extra luxurious. All right, now we are going to reintroduce our beef into the jus. Perfect. Pop a lid on that boy. Now this whole thing is going to go into a cold oven for a couple hours until it's tender. Remember, we truss this roast, so it should stay together nicely, but we'll talk more about slicing it once this thing is cooked. There are dozens and dozens of Italian beef recipes online, but most of them neglect one important part of any sandwich: the bread. So over the years, a handful of you have requested that we do a deep dive into the bread for Italian beef. The bread might be the most overlooked component of the Italian beef sandwich, especially here in Chicago. And that's probably because we take our commercial bakeries for granted. I'm talking about bakeries like S. Rosen's and Toronto, both family-run bakeries that have been operating for a very, very long time. 1909. 1962. These bakeries make rolls that are so good, so affordable, and so available that especially if you live in Chicago, you'd be an absolute lunatic to try to make yourself. So obviously, that's what we're gonna be doing today. And to make matters more confusing, the Italian beef sandwich calls for a French roll, an Italian sandwich on French bread. That's America, baby. I'm not even sure the French have a word for roll. Ben baguette. Croissant. A French roll should be plain and simple, asterisk around plain. I'm talking no open crumb, no crazy fermentation and crazy flavor, no artisan crackly crust. This is a soft yet sturdy roll that is designed to cradle beef, soak up juice, and not fall apart too quickly. You can totally mix this by hand today, but we're gonna use a stand mixer. We're gonna start with warm water, neutral oil. I like to add the liquids first, it makes it a little easier to mix. Then we'll hit it with our bread flour, instant yeast, a little bit of sugars, and now we'll mix that up a bit. We're gonna mix this up by hand just until the water kind of starts to hydrate the flour into a shaggy mass. Just till we get something like this. Now we're just gonna cover that up, let it sit for about 10 minutes. All right, now we can add in our salt and transfer this to the mixer. Dough hook. Let's kind of like loosely shape this into a ball-ish figure. Just gonna cover that with some plastic wrap. Now we can let this bulk ferment at room temperature until it basically doubles in size, and we can get going on the next thing. Okay, so the Italian beef is a simple sandwich without a ton of toppings. Really, the only toppings are peppers, but there are two types. You got the sweets and the hots. The hot peppers refer to giardiniera, and no, it is not a weather pattern or a skin condition. It's an Italian pickled hot pepper condiment. It also comes in medium and mild, but really, it's spicy. It should be spicy. Where do I even start with this stuff? Well, I like it enough to make a t-shirt about it, so there's that. Basically, it's a spicy, crunchy mixture of vegetables that have been pickled, so it kind of brings a bit of heat acid and crunchy tanginess to the sandwich, and whatever you put it on. I put this stuff on like everything. This really is sort of what keeps this sandwich from being one-noted, right? What gives it some texture. And if the stuff is good, it should be spicy, but it shouldn't kill you, right? You should kind of be able to feel it behind the eyes, if that makes sense.
Hot giardiniera.
And there are a couple different types, right? You have the classic chunky version, and then you have the sort of like relish version, right? This kind of minced up version. Now, we're not gonna make giardiniera in this video today, mostly because it takes multiple days. We've already been down that rabbit hole. I made a video about that, so if you'd like, you can go check that out. I'll leave it, somewhere for you to click on. I will also leave that recipe somewhere easily for you to find too. Moving on to the sweets or the sweet peppers, right? Those are just bell pepper. Usually it's green pepper. Sometimes you'll see red bell pepper as well. It's just pepper that's been roasted. Because you cook it and it's a bell pepper, it kind of releases some of those natural sugars, and compared to the spicy, it's a little sweet, hence the name. These are the calm to giardiniera's chaos. If you don't like spicy food, these are gonna be your best friends. If you do like spicy food, I still recommend getting your beef with both hot and sweet, because why not? The one thing that's kind of weird is cheese. You can order a cheesy beef depending on like where you are. It's not very common, but some people love it. I'm not here to yuck your yum. I don't think it belongs in an Italian beef sandwich. We can have that debate in the comments if you like. But we're gonna do something to these sweet peppers that I haven't done in my past recipes that should elevate them a little bit, as pretentious as that sounds. It's twill, it's very twill. In the past, I just threw these in the oven and called it a day, but we're gonna borrow a few techniques from around the globe to make these that much better. Starting with high heat, and a pep. This is what we're going for here. Charred to the bones. Black. Now we're just gonna cover these up and steam them about 10 minutes until they get nice and soft. While those steam, we're gonna go on medium heat, small sauce pot. We're gonna go in with some red wine vinegar. This can be any vinegar really. Sugar, a little bit of salt, a clove of crushed garlic. And I mean, why not while we're here? Maybe just a little wee pinch of the God particle, MSG. And now we're just gonna bring this to basically a light simmer just until everything dissolves. All right, beautiful. Cut the heat, remove that. This suction in the bowl is always a good sign. These have been steaming for about 15 minutes. Very, very soft. A couple of ways you can do this. I like to use the sink. Just gonna take off as much skin as possible. Then I like to just give it a rinsey poo. Some people just use a napkin for this, but I like to use the sink. Look how easy that is. You're removing most of the charry skin because it's a little acrid. And then what I like to do from here is whoop, remove the hat, give it a split, and remove the seeds. And boom, just rinse and repeat. Then it's just a matter of cutting them up. So if some of the charry skin's still on, that's fine. That's good flavor. So I just kind of like to clean these up a little bit. This is optional, but make them more manageable. Slice out some of this weird orangey parts, some of the pith. And then from here, once you have like a nice flat piece, you can either keep it in 2 larger ones, you can cut those up even more. Another piece here, roughly that big, 3.5 inches by 1.5 inches or something. Now we're just gonna pour that hot brine with the garlic right on top there and just cover it with olive oil, right? Just gonna kind of steer that up a little bit, let that sugar and the peppers and the salt and the olive oil and the vinegar mingle. So what we did here was basically make an agrodolce or escabeche, depending on what part of the world you're in. It's basically kind of like a sweet and sour itization of food, right? This can be done with different vegetables for preservation or just flavor in our case, with different proteins and stuff. Essentially, we just kind of made these sweet peppers a little more sweet and also have a bit of a punchier sour note. You could totally use these right away, but they will definitely be better with a day or 2 in the fridge. Kind of let things soak and marinate. All right. Nice and expanded. We're gonna get this thing out onto the clean bench. This makes about 4 pretty solidly sized French rolls. I'm gonna weigh this into 4 equal parts by weight, but you can also just eyeball it, Live your life, it's your decision. It's a good starting place. Just to make these easier to work with, I'm gonna pre-portion them into balls. All right, so to do this, you got your dough mass. I like to fold it onto itself to make a smooth side. Pinch it like so. Plop it down. Use surface tension in your hands to kind of pull the dough taut into a ball. So you have something like this. Now at this point, these will pull back on us. Just gonna rest these for 5 minutes. It'll make them easier to work with. I'm just gonna use a little ruler here to help make sure I get the right length. So I'm gonna go for about an 8-inch roll here. So we're gonna put that there for a guide. Pop our dough ball here, spread it out a bit. Just kind of make it into sort of like a rectangle. Just kind of flattening it out with my fingers, almost like pizza dough kind of. Press the sides there. And once we're flattened out here at this point, about 8 inches across, right? I like to take the sides and just drag them and smear them on the board like that. This way, this part will be easier. Notice I'm not using any flour here. Just kind of pull that off. The fingers kind of grab the dough, kind of like that. So that all you have to do now is pinch the ends together, go all the way down. Same thing on the ends here, pinch them together, all the way down. Roll that out. Where are we at here? It's about 8 inches, I'll take it. Then we're gonna coat the bottom with cornmeal. No need to spritz these, the cornmeal will just adhere. It's kind of a Chicago thing, I don't know. You see cornmeal in a lot of stuff around here. Once shaped, we're gonna cover these with some plastic and let these proof and puff up for about 50 minutes. Definitely take your time and proof these. If you rush this step, they're gonna kind of like explode and deform on you in the oven amongst other bad things that could potentially happen. But yeah, proof, 50 minutes. Woo! These are puffy. All right, so when I was developing these, I kind of looked at the original Toronto or S. Rosen's bun here and tried to kind of like work backwards, right? Almost looking at it like a fossil. So what you can see here, there's a score running down the middle and it's pressed down, which leads me to think they make one big sort of like snake log of dough, score the whole thing, and then chop it up into portions like this before proofing and baking. So that's what we're gonna do. Or we're gonna try to emulate that at least. Using a little bread lamb here, score it edge to edge, and just saw off the ends. That's gonna give us that kind of classic flat, flush look. You can see that kind of comparison right there. All right, all right. Oh, nice. Cute. All right, we gotta probe one of these. What do we got here? 207, all right, a little over, perfect. Check this out. I'm wearing these gloves because they're still pretty hot, but the bottom, nice and cornmealed. Some good fluff to it. You can see that score that stops. You know, this kind of like, I don't know what to call it, butt part.
I'd like to order a butt.
Just like our store-bought guy, got the nice wide score on there, the butts. Obviously ours is a little more substantial. Pretty good, not first try, first like big recipe deep dive. I did this like 5 times to get this right, so. Whew. Nice. All right, so if a toothpick or another dull thing can punch right through your meat, it's tender, it's cooked. Just floating around, suspended in the jus. I hope we all get to experience being suspended in the jus one day. So I'm carefully going to transfer it to a plate. Look at this steaming beauty. So now we're left with all this beautiful jus. Now as delicious as this smells and even looks, ain't nobody want to get a huge chunk of garlic paper in their mouth when they're eating their beef. So we gotta strain this. Be careful, this stuff is like lava. Geronimo. I'm straining this one time and I'm not pressing anything through the strainer. Left with about 2 quarts. It's about 8 cups. What was once just some chicken stock is now a very spiced, very beefy jus, perfect for dipping our Italian beef. One quick thing about that word jus. I can't explain why this is, but here in Chicago, a lot of people, probably most people, call this gravy. Now to me, it's thin. That ain't gravy to me. Gravy is thick. It's thickened with flour. It's viscous. This to me is just straight up almost like stock, right? It's a flavorful stock. But when you go to the spots and you see it on the menu or somebody asks you or you just hear it on the streets or whatever, people call it gravy. So let me know in the comments below. What do you call this? Is this gravy or is it jus or is it juice? I don't know. I mean, I think it's jus. Should I try it? I'm gonna try it. Need a straw to get past that deadly layer of fat, but it's nice. We're gonna pop our jus back into the clean container that we braised the beef in. This is strained. And then we can carefully lower our beef back in. Okay, I hate to do this to you, but in order to do this right, this needs to chill down completely. If this chuck roast isn't chilled down, we are not going to be able to get those razor thin slices that we need for Italian beef. A lot of recipes kind of just like, shred the meat up, and while it's still good and tasty, it's not really like an Italian beef, so for that look, that feel, that mouth feel, we need to chill this down. But luckily for us, I Food Networked a batch yesterday that's ready to slice now. Woo! Look at that. Can't see anything. All right, so here's all the fat, which is good. We want some of that, but look at this, dude. Look at that gelatinous jus underneath the hood. I'm gonna scrape some of this off, keep some of it in. That jello is what we want. Look at this. This is a chuck roast that was roughly about the same size. Look how much that shrinks. Don't be scared to get a nice large hunk of meat, because it'll shrink like 20 to 40%. So we're gonna take that out and we'll get slicing. Okay, we gotta talk about this guy here. I tied string around this beef individually, and that's so that you can decide how much you'd like to undress of your beef while slicing. This way, the rest of the beef that you're not gonna slice or that you haven't sliced yet kind of stays together. Now in the past, we used a mandolin, which I thought was a nifty little trick. It works very well, especially when the beef is chilled. A sharp knife will definitely do the job, but for best results, there's only one way to slice this beef. When that warms, that fat's gonna go beautifully soft and melt into our sandwich. I don't care if you're an absolute samurai with your chef's knife, meat slicers rule because it makes getting super thin slices consistently through a lot of protein very easily. However, it's not necessary. You could do this again with a mandolin or a chef's knife. The one thing that I kind of wanted to drive home here is that the thinness and the texture of the sandwich is important for it. All right, now we can just take our beef and kind of carefully lay it back into our jus. We'll warm that through very gently. Whew. We got all our stuff for the Italian beef. We got our beef and jus, or gravy. We got our hots, the giardiniera, our sweets, the bell pepper, and of course, our freshly baked French rolls, Chicago style. I think it is finally TTB. Time to build. This is my beef horn. We're summoning all the Italianos. That's Mario, that's Luigi, that's Wario, that's Waluigi, that's Tony Soprano, that's Steven Cusato. Hey, Stevie. All right, let's make this thing. Is Princess Peach Italian too? Is Daisy Italian? Is Bowser Italian? He seems German. We're going down with the French roll that I sliced, like so. I'm gonna hollow out just a little bit. It's a little bready. Oh yeah. I'm gonna drip some of that. Oh yeah, look at that. Right on there. Just right on there, like so. I'm gonna lay on the sweets. And now we're gonna absolutely crush it with giardiniera, because that's how I like to eat it. No jar left behind. Well, maybe some. It is inevitable. And now we close her up. And there she blows, the Italian beef 2.0 at the crib. Before we cut into this thing, we gotta talk terminology. And before you punch me in the face, just hear me out for a second here. We talked about the peppers. You got the sweets, the hots. You order with sweets, you order with hots. Another thing you have to think about is if you want it dry, wet, or dipped. Dry means the sandwich is served as is. The gravy served on the side. Dipped means that the sandwich is kind of like lightly dipped in the jus, or just the bread is dipped and then everything's added in, so the inside is kind of moist, but the outside is dry. Then wet is when you go full out, balls to the walls, and dip the entire sandwich in jus before popping it into its paper, rolling it up, taking it back to your table. I don't recommend ordering it wet if you're going far. It's always a safe bet to go dry and just kind of like control your own jus situation on your own with like a cup on the side. So that's how I like to eat it, and that's how we're gonna serve it today. That's why I didn't dip this whole thing in the jus here, with the gravy rather, but we might have to do that just for the shot, just to experience that together as a friend group. Yeah. All right, let's eat this. First, let's cut it. If I was smart, I would roll this up. We're just gonna go for it. Nice. Looks like a lot of bread there, and maybe it is, but look how tender and just squishy that is. Like, that's going to be fantastic when you dip it. You got the sweets, the hots, the thin beef. The stuff is ready to be dunked. Now this is what it's all about. Oh. Yeah, saturation, baby. The dip, the drip. One of my favorite beefs in the city is Al's beef, and we now know they actually pretty much invented the Italian beef. And when you eat an Italian beef, there's a stance you're supposed to take. They call it the Italian stance, right? So check my form here. How we looking? I'm gonna have to dunk that for good measure. Reassume. This gives me like the shark effect. It's like that addicting spice. It's not too much, but it's enough to make you just want to keep eating and eating and eating. It's so satisfying and savory and like spiced, crunchy from the giardiniera. And this stance is fire. I can't be getting any drip on my already drippy shirt. By the way, Witt.So, cop yourself one of these. This bread is really good. It's interesting. It came out nice. Like I said, I did this, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 times before I nailed this recipe. I even think there's room for improvement. You tell me, you want to see a deep dive on like a Chicago style French roll for Italian beef? Maybe we'll make a video or something. So good. Yeah, dude, the dippage is so prime. The beef chuck roast is noticeably juicier than if you were to use like a bottom round like I've done in the past. It's just like, it falls apart a little easier and it's much fattier. And you know, that contrasting with those like sweet and sour peppers, the crunchy, spicy giardiniera, the rich, savory, warm jus. This is like a comforting like winter meal, but it's also something that I could totally just, you know, eat in the summer and like absolutely love it, drenched in sweat, a la pho kinda. I mean, I can't help but to dip. I can't help. I can't think of anything else to say. I don't think there is anything else to say. I'm silenced by the buff. If you have a favorite Italian beef joint somewhere in the city or out of the city, let us know in the comments. If you want to watch me and my buddy Josh go muck like 5 or 6 Italian beefs, I'll leave that video for you in the description. But regardless, let me know, if you're from Chicago or you're not from Chicago, what is your favorite Italian beef joint in the city or the suburbs? If it's from the suburbs, I'm willing to bet $5 right now that it's Johnny's beef, but let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, like the video. If you're new to the channel, sub to the channel. If you're not new to the channel, welcome back. Come say what's up in Discord. We're chilling and chatting over there. If you can support the Patreon, AKA the grocery fund, that would be lovely as well. I also have merch on the store. I'll leave a link for you below. All of the proceeds help me keep making videos, so I appreciate you in advance. I hope this video inspired you to make an Italian beef if you're outside of the city of Chicago or even living here. Sandwich rules, and it's very famous for a reason. That's all I got for you next time, so until next we meet, that it is.